My name is Grant Scott. I live in Cape Town in South Africa. I'm kind of between jobs at the moment, trying to reinvent myself. I worked for about 25 years in different roles. The last was I spent 11 years as the CFO of a large consumer business, and before that I was an investment banker for 10 years. The transition from money lifestyle into bush life has been an interesting one, and in many ways it's almost back to my childhood. At the age of 8 I had a passion for wildlife and the bush. I grew up not too far from here in a little town called Nelspruit, very close to a big wilderness area, the Kruger National Park, and had the dream of becoming a field guide as a kid. And one thing led to another. We moved to the big city, and city life sort of took over, and so I got involved in a career in finance. And after 25 or 30 years of financial career, I was fortunate to make some good decisions, make a little bit of money, and that gave me the chance at the middle of last year to pause for a moment, think about reconnecting with my family, my 2 teenage daughters and my wife, and to explore that passion that I had as an 8-year-old kid. It's a very privileged position to be in. My family is incredibly supportive of this. I'm not sure I'm going to become a guide from it. There are various options which I'll touch on in a moment. But really, you know, obviously the time away from them has been a challenge, but at the same time it's connected us in different ways. My daughters are both writing exams at the moment at school, and Dad was doing his exams just today, so there was a lot of commonality that came with it too, and that was quite amusing. So there were a lot of mixed emotions in making the decision. The one is balancing the responsibility you've got to a family, a young family, teenage daughters and so on. The easy part was chasing your passion. And I was deliberately pragmatic in not deciding clearly what it was that I was going to do with it. I decided to give myself the room to chase a passion and stay open to what might come of it. And so I haven't concluded exactly what that is yet, but the mix of the daunting nature of it and the excitement kind of balance each other out, and it's pretty cool. I deliberately didn't want to come to a conclusion too quickly, because I think it might rob me of finding something that might be less obvious at the outset. Yeah. One of the daunting aspects of this is obviously financial. I'm in a slightly different position, having worked for the best part of 30 years, that I've built up a little bit of capital, and that gives me a little bit of room and a slightly different benchmark in terms of how much money I would need to make out of a new career in conservation and guiding. And that's just a very privileged position to be in, that I know a lot of youngsters either have to decide on almost this martyrdom of being a conservationist and a field guide and giving up on their dreams of making big money, and that is a very stark reality for a lot of people. However, there are ways to combine it, and the tourism industry, there's more than enough to go around. It's whose pockets it's going into, who's adding the value, and is there an alignment between the value add and the rewards or the financial success that goes with that. And so I'm interested in exploring where those touch points are and finding the optimal piece that balances, because the last thing I want to do is go back into a desk job in the conservation industry. The key is being out there, living your dreams, and still making enough money to put food on the table. Yeah. To be out here rather than stuck behind a desk in the office is just incredibly liberating. It's literally, you don't know what day of the week it is. You kind of start getting in tune with the biorhythms out here. That sounds very bunny hugger, tree hugger-ish, but you literally do start to, your timing, a day begins and ends with sunrise and sunset. You get to bed really early, wake up really early. You do things at times that are non-conventional, because that's the rhythm of the bush and what the wildlife is doing, and you're here to observe and to understand and to learn from those things, and so you start to adapt that. That's hugely liberating. I mentioned a passion for the bush and wildlife that arose as an 8-year-old kid, and together with that has been a passion for photography. I've always been an enthusiast. It's always been a hobby. I used to, at the age of 16, 17, develop my own photos in dark rooms and so on. And with the focus on building a career and a family and so on, the photography took a bit of a backseat. And so for me, part of the enjoyment of what I'm doing now is I'm getting the combination of being able to get back into the photography and the wildlife, because the two go so well together. And for me, the logic between learning more about wildlife has really been to improve the photography. I think the one enhances the other, because the real magic happens when you understand animal behavior, you understand technically how to take photographs, and when you put the two together, you get far better photographs. Something as simple as predicting when a bird might fly off, or knowing which direction an elephant might move next. It's always going to be a guess. I'm trying to make it an educated guess, and you know, that's quite fulfilling in itself. The type of photographer I am, I really enjoy all aspects of wildlife photography, from macro, and you know, one of the things I've learned on this EcoTraining course has been the world belongs to the small, the arthropods or insects, and how they're connected to plants and how they fit into the broader ecosystem. And so everything from macro photography all the way through to obviously the very popular Big Five. But I like telling stories through my pictures, and I think that's where the real art is, and that's the sort of constant, almost unattainable quest, is that you want to not have postcard pictures which are more proof shots of an animal or a bird or something, but something that tells a story and leaves a little bit to the imagination of what that animal is up to, what it's thinking, capture the emotion in it, etc. And so yeah, I like to, although my formal qualification is an accountant, I'm a very reluctant accountant, and I think the creative side comes out in trying to express or tell stories through photographs. In my sort of quest to reinvent things and look at opportunities to align and monetize my passions, really, photography, wildlife, and being able to earn some money and balance those three. One of the little things that I'm looking at is Luxury Survival Africa. It's primarily a guided self-drive safari business. I've got some questions still to answer in terms of how sustainable that could be, but an element of it is advising on building safari vehicles or expedition vehicles, and then the photography is a key part, and guided photographic safaris is really, I think, something that most closely aligns the three passions that I've got, or two passions and the need to make some money. I think they allow me to add a lot of value to guests, where they're getting an enhanced guided experience because they've got the photographic expertise on it, and it's not costing them anything more for the trip. So yeah, I think that's kind of where it's going to end up, and whether I stay with the Luxury Survival name or not remains to be seen, but it's a little bit of an example of the eco-training experience in the last 2 months, because that's been a little bit of luxury survival. The concept luxury survival was very much people can get out into remote areas, which often requires giving up on a huge amount of creature comforts, etc. And you can do it in a way that has got the old school safari concept. Safari means to journey. And so flying into a luxury lodge for 3 nights, being pampered and flying back out, while many people refer to it colloquially as safari, I think the true safari is deeper than that. And I think there are many areas and many lodge or accommodation options that are not explored by people because they are concerned about giving too many of the creature comforts up. Luxury Survival looks to be able to show people how they can experience those very remote, very unique areas without giving up on a good cup of coffee, some proper tableware, and a good meal around the fire. So the advice that I'd give to someone looking to make a similar career change, or looking to balance being the breadwinner at home against chasing their passions, is, depending on your particular circumstances, be very careful in terms of the decision. But once you're comfortable that you can buy yourself enough time, and you have a number of little points along the way, decision points at which you need to say, unless I'm at this point by then, I need to consider something else. Once you've done that, then free yourself of those shackles and just go for it. There are so many people, I meet them every day, who were so concerned about taking that leap, and I'm yet to meet one that regrets it. And so they all look back at that apprehension with a proper understanding of it because they've done it, but almost in a way saying, what was I so concerned about? And the only way, one of the sort of strap lines for luxury survival is don't go, don't know. And I'd encourage you, hashtag don't go, don't know. One of the things to think about in making a decision like this and chasing a dream into the wilderness, etc., is, as daunting as it might seem, it's always easy to go back to the traditional career. And if you really step back and think about it, your fallback position on exploring your passion then becomes what your upside used to be. I mean, that's not a bad deal. Worst case, you've got your upside. And so you might be a little delayed because you spent 5 years running around the bush, but at least you gave yourself the chance to really live and explore that. So I would go for it.